Hello, and welcome to Easy English Stories. I'm so excited you're here, because today we're going to do something very special together. You're going to practice your listening skills, and if you want, you can practice shadowing with me. Now, you might be wondering, what's shadowing? Let me explain. Shadowing is a technique where you repeat what you hear, just like a shadow follows you. It's one of the best ways to improve your speaking skills and sound more natural in English. And guess what? You can do that right here, right now, in this video. How? It's simple. First, watch the story closely. Pay attention to every word, every phrase. Then, after we finish the chapter, come back and try to repeat each sentence. It's that easy. The more you practice every day, the faster your fluency will grow. So don't just watch, participate. Now, let's talk about today's story. Get ready for a story full of emotions, mystery, and, yes, betrayal. Imagine discovering something so shocking about someone you trust. This is exactly what happens to Emma, a woman who thinks she knows everything about her life, until one day she finds something that makes her question everything. What would you do if you were in her shoes? Keep watching, and let's see how the story unfolds. Chapter 1. The Discovery. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when Emma was cleaning the house. The sun was shining through the window, casting a warm glow on the living room. As she moved around the room, dusting the shelves and organizing things, something caught her eye. An envelope was lying on the table. It didn't look like an ordinary piece of mail. It was thick, and the edges were a little worn, as if it had been handled multiple times. Curious, Emma walked over and picked it up. There was no return address, just her husband David's name written on the front in neat handwriting. She felt a strange sensation in her chest. What could this be? She thought. She opened the envelope slowly, and inside, she found 2 plane tickets. Emma's heart skipped a beat as she read the destination. London. But what made her stop was the names printed on the tickets. The first ticket said, David Thompson, her husband's name. She smiled, thinking it was a surprise trip. But the second ticket, it wasn't hers. It was for someone else. The name printed on the ticket was unfamiliar. Her smile faded. Who is this? She asked herself quietly. She looked at the tickets again, hoping she was mistaken. But no, there it was. A wave of confusion washed over her. Why would David have 2 tickets to London? Who was going with him? She placed the tickets back on the table and sat down, her mind racing. What was going on? Was this a mistake? Or was there something more she didn't know? Chapter 2. Uncovering Secrets. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She stared at the tickets on the table, her mind spinning. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked them up again. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a work trip. Maybe David was planning a surprise for her, but why wouldn't he have told her? Why didn't he mention a trip to London? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. It was David. He walked in, smiling, his usual carefree demeanor. But Emma didn't smile back. She stood frozen, staring at him. David noticed her expression immediately. "Hey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, his voice full of concern. Emma didn't say anything. She just held up the envelope, the tickets clearly visible in her hand. David's smile faded when he saw the tickets. "Where did you find those?" he asked, his tone suddenly serious. Emma's heart raced. "You tell me. What are these tickets for, David? Who are you going to London with?" David's face turned pale. For a moment, there was complete silence between them. Emma could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She had never seen David look so nervous. "I can explain," he said, his voice low. "But it's not what you think." Emma's mind was racing. Not what I think? Was there an explanation that could make sense of this? She didn't know what to believe anymore. Was David hiding something from her? And if so, what? Chapter 3. The Confession. David sat down on the couch, his eyes fixed on the floor. Emma stood across from him, still holding the plane tickets, her hands clenched tightly around them. The tension in the room was thick. I didn't want to tell you this," David began, his voice shaky. "I didn't know how. It's complicated." Emma's heart ached. She wanted to shout, to demand answers, but she stayed silent, waiting for him to continue. David took a deep breath. "The tickets are for a trip to London, yes, but it's not what you think. I've been planning this for months." Emma's eyes narrowed. "For months? Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you mention it?" David looked up, his eyes filled with guilt. "Because it's not a trip for us, Emma. It's a trip for someone else. A woman I used to be close with." The words hit Emma like a punch in the stomach. A woman? Her mind raced. Who was this woman? "I didn't want to hurt you," David continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "I met her before we got together. I know I should have told you sooner, but I didn't. She reached out to me recently and I just couldn't say no." Emma felt her stomach turn. She had heard enough. The pain in her chest was unbearable. She dropped the tickets onto the coffee table, unable to hold them any longer. "Are you saying you're going to London with her?" Emma whispered, barely able to speak. David nodded, his face full of regret. "Yes, but please understand, I love you. I'm not doing this to hurt you." Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. Could she trust him again after this? Chapter 4. The Decision. Emma stood there, her mind swirling with confusion and anger. Every part of her wanted to scream, to demand answers, but she just couldn't find the words. Her chest felt tight, and her breath was shallow. She wanted to run away from this situation, but she knew she had to face it. David sat quietly, waiting for her response, his eyes filled with regret and fear. "I'm sorry, Emma. I never meant for any of this to happen. I swear I didn't want to hurt you." Emma shook her head slowly, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't understand, David. Why did you keep this from me? You should have told me the truth. Why would you do this?" David reached out, but Emma stepped back. She couldn't bear to have him close right now. She needed space to think. "I don't know what to say anymore," David murmured, his voice breaking. "I never wanted to make you feel like this. I'm sorry, I just—" "Stop, David," Emma interrupted, her voice firm. "You're not listening. You say you love me, but if you really loved me, you wouldn't have lied. You wouldn't have kept secrets from me." David's face crumpled as he realized the weight of his actions. Emma was right. He had failed her. "I need time," Emma said, her voice trembling but determined. "I need to think about everything. I don't know what to do anymore." David nodded, understanding the pain he had caused. He knew he had to give her space, but he also knew that it might be too late. Emma turned and walked toward the door, leaving David behind, alone with his regret. Chapter 5, moving on. Days passed, and the weight of David's betrayal still hung heavily over Emma. She spent most of her time at home, contemplating what had happened. The love she thought she had was now shattered, and she wasn't sure if she could ever trust again. The pain was deep, but slowly, she started to realize something important. She needed to move on. One morning, Emma woke up with a new sense of clarity. She knew she couldn't stay in this emotional prison forever. She had always been strong, and it was time to reclaim her life. She looked at herself in the mirror and made a silent promise. "I'll get through this." Emma decided to meet with a close friend, Sophie, at a cafe. They sat down with their coffee, and Sophie immediately noticed the change in Emma. "You look different," she said with a warm smile. "You look like you're ready to move forward." Emma smiled back, feeling a sense of strength she hadn't felt in days. "I think I finally am." They talked for hours, and Emma realized that she had the power to choose her future. She wasn't going to let this heartbreak define her. With time, she would heal. That evening, as Emma sat alone in her apartment, she reflected on the decision she had made. It wasn't easy, but she was beginning to understand that life goes on. Sometimes you have to let go of what you thought was perfect to make space for something better. Emma was ready to heal, to rebuild, and to rediscover herself. The pain would fade with time, and she would come out stronger than before. And that's the end of Emma's journey. Life can be really tough sometimes, but it's important to remember that you always have the power to choose how to move forward. Emma's story is a reminder that even when things don't go as planned, we have the strength to rebuild and become stronger. If you enjoyed this story and learned something new, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Did you connect with Emma's journey? Let me know what you think. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with more stories like this. If you're serious about improving your English, remember to practice shadowing with me. Shadowing is a great way to improve your speaking skills, and the more you practice, the better you get. Just go back, listen to the story again, and repeat each sentence out loud. Do this every day, and you'll see real improvement in your pronunciation. If you feel like you need more time, feel free to save this video to your favorites and come back to it whenever you're ready to practice more. It's all about consistent practice. Remember, progress takes time, but every little step forward matters. Keep going and you'll get there. The journey to fluency is made one word at a time. Keep practicing and you'll reach your goals. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.